Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Backlot Banter. My name is Tucker Hazel. Today, I'm here with my cheesing co-host Tanner Extra, and today we're here to talk about Smile 2. I could do some pun about us smiling as well, but you know what? We're not going there. This is a serious review. Tanner, we have seen Smile 2, Parker Finn's directorial debut. It's like his
His
debut.
his sophomore
Yeah, sophomore feature
feature.
film. How do you feel about this movie?
Tucker, I like this movie a lot more than I like the first Smile movie. A film that I thought was all right, has its ups and downs and things that I like and things that I don't. But this one feels like an improvement in basically every category, and I think that seems to be the commanding sort of opinion on it. Is that there's a clear upscale in budget and scope and everything like that, and what we're doing. I think that we are really tackling some a greater theme or messaging in this one as opposed to just the vague the smile demon parasite virus, whatever you want
Yeah.
to call it, is a metaphor for like general trauma and mental illness.
Yeah, I
I think
remember
we're
that being
getting a little
something
bit more specific here.
you took umbrage with in the first movie. Like, oh my god, the
Yes.
monster is a metaphor for trauma. Yada yada yada.
Yeah. We're getting more specific here, and also taking it in a more focused or just more interesting sort of direction with our focus on a famous pop star and her comeback after addiction and a horrible accident and everything like that. And just generally, the scares are better. I think the filmmaking itself is more upscaled. So really enjoyed this one. Tucker, what do you
I
think?
mean, that's the quickest review we've ever done because you said it all. I don't know why I'm even
Yeah.
present at this point, but
Yeah.
I'll just say ditto, and then we'll dive in because I
Okay.
agree with everything you said, and I want to start with the best part of this movie and the thing that I'm going to take away the most from it is main performance. We have
Hmm.
Naomi
Naomi
Scott as
Scott.
Sky Riley, who, as you said, you gave the audience a little insight into who Skylar Riley is, and Naomi Scott knocks it like 7 parks out of the park. I mean, this is an all
It's
timer horror
She
performance.
is really good, like really
Like when I get
good,
to the
and of
Tuskers at the
course,
end of the year,
yeah,
she's up there
she's
for
it's
nominations.
it's it's really impressive. And I mean, I'm not super familiar with Scott's work. I may be mixing her up with somebody else, but like general modern audiences might know her from like the Power Rangers
Yeah,
movie, and I think she was
Aladdin. Yeah,
Jasmine in
Charlie's
in
Angels, new
Aladdin.
Charlie's
Oh
Angels.
yeah,
Yeah,
Charlie's Angels. So
so
like
nothing of a
she has
note.
not been she has not been in any especially good
Yeah,
movies. And this one, it's really a showcase for her,
totally.
a scream queen showcase. But I think that is a particular vein of acting that has really been fleshed
Hmm.
out by some great female performances in recent years, sort of exploring the space of that scream queen like
Hmm.
persona. And I think she's towards the top. She's S tier of modern scream
Yeah,
queens for me. It's really solid. I mean, her eyes are popping in every single sequence. She has not only the weight of the smile virus and being tortured by that, but the added pressures of being, this pop star who's coming back to
yeah,
prominence and all the pressures that come with that. She's wearing all of that very graciously and lets that really fly in certain moments when she is supposed to be acting unhinged because she's being tormented by this demonic
yeah,
force, but everyone else is looking at her as though she's being unhinged because she is a former
yeah.
drug
She's
addict,
relapsing.
and she's
Yeah.
relapsing to some degree. And yeah, I mean, all of that really sings in her performance. Pun
Sings,
intended.
yeah. Well, I mean, because she also is very good at singing and dancing, which this
Yes.
movie requires as well. Which I think that performance and the fact that she's able to do the sort of triple threat of acting, singing, and dancing, combined with the fact that they wrote a horror movie where the main protagonist, the Scream Queen, is a singer and dancer on a large scale, is what
Hmm.
makes this movie feel totally unique. I've never seen a movie combine these two elements in this exact way. It's actually funny that we got Trap earlier this year, which is kind of an
Yes, I
inverse.
mean people have been drawing these
Um,
comparisons that, but this one is like Lady Raven is technically a main character in that film for a
yeah,
period of time, but we are totally following Sky Riley and her
yes,
sort of rise and fall, and being mentally manipulated
mhm.
by the abilities of the Smile Monster, which is something that I want to get into next. Unless you want to keep talking about Naomi
She's
Scott
just
and her
great. I mean,
characterization, yeah,
it's hard for me to list all of the great things about it because I just think she knocks every scene out of the park. She is given a whole range to work with because she
of
is
course,
also someone who is dealing with a lot. So she gets a lot of like alone scenes where not only is she being tortured and running away from things and in different more traditionally horror scenes, but sometimes she's just stressed and she's in her
Yeah.
apartment and putting on a lot of layers of clothes and worried about her body image. And she has a lot of internal
Yep.
anguish and anxiety about the way that she presents, the way that other people treat her, the way that she has treated other people in the past. There's a lot of great character work here that she completely embodies. And so it's really watching her in these down moments where I'm like, no, she's not just putting on the persona of someone who's running around and screaming as she does to great effect in this movie numerous times,
Mhm.
but she also is embodying this character on a very human, personal level. She's a flawed person, but she also is someone that you end up caring for and rooting for, just
Yeah.
despite the like shit that she's gone through.
You really this film does a great job of sort of involving you in her
Hmm.
POV. I mean,
Totally.
you're
Yep. Yep.
essentially
Yep.
locked into that for the entirety of the film,
Hmm.
outside of the cold
Yeah.
open, which is the connective tissue from the first
Yeah.
film into this
But I
one.
do want to say that is
Yeah.
connective tissue. I didn't realize it was connective tissue. This movie
Mhm.
works perfectly fine as its own
Yes.
standalone film. And I think that is really important because for me, and I think I was agreeing with what you said earlier, and we can get into something else. I think this is just what the first smile was trying to do with more confidence in every
Mhm.
element of its execution. A more interesting lead performer and written character, more interesting concept for the lead character, better
Mhm.
cinematography, better production
Yep.
design,
Yep.
better scares and sound design, everything. And so I hope that this movie becomes, you want a really well made horror movie. Okay, Smile 2, yeah, sure, but just go watch it. Like you don't need to worry about
Mhm.
the lineage, the history. The first movie's fine, but Parker Finn really came into his own here, and it's also again the direction and cinematography and things. I
Mhm.
want to talk a little about the craft of this film because I think it is really exceptional on a
Yeah.
$28 million budget, which is I think it's almost $10 million more than the first movie cost, and
Yep.
you can feel that it is a bigger production.
They stretched that $10 million.
They stretched that $28 million.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you could have seen a movie like this be given an $80 million budget and turn about the same. Like turn out about the same
Yeah.
with the amount of extras and
Yeah,
set
yeah.
design and like costumes and things like everything looks
Mhm.
lavish and glamorous and crisp. And on $28 million, this movie's gonna handily make that back. I don't think it'll be as proportionally profitable as the first one. Just I think there's like a
Yeah.
little bit of diminishing interest, but
There
it
might be a
paid off in
ceiling
terms
to
of the
interest, yeah.
quality of the film. I think.
Yeah, I mean, crisp is a good word. I think that's kind of the vibe that this one really gives off. The first film has a bit of a grungier, seedier, or, maybe more just like yeah, this is going to sound disparaging, and I don't really mean it
Mhm.
to, but this is exactly what the film was supposed to be. It felt like a more of a straight to streaming
Yeah,
kind of
yeah, it
movie
was.
in terms of its
Yeah,
look and
totally.
scale and everything like that. This is absolutely living up to its, the reality of it being a sequel to that
Mhm,
that movie that kind of became a smash runaway
mhm.
hit on a small budget and everything like that. And yeah, I think I think they do a really great job here. I mean, it's kind of flawless from a production design standpoint. It's indistinguishable. The costuming and the stadium design. I think a lot of it is set in like Madison Square
Mm,
Garden or whatever. It is indistinguishable from like actually seeing the behind the scenes of like the Eras
yeah,
tour or the Renaissance tour from Beyonce or anything like that. So yeah, I really like it. The choreography of like all the dancing
it's
and everything
really
like that.
good.
The pop music all seems very
Yeah,
genuine, very
totally.
much in line with Trap and Lady Raven that we had mentioned
Yeah.
from a little bit
I think it
earlier.
works better than the Lady Raven songs. We only get, like,
Yeah,
2 Sky Riley songs in this, but I thought they were good.
I think it's they put a little bit more focus on it because you're like, okay, we're actually following the pop
Yeah, yeah,
star
true,
while
true,
she
true.
is singing and rehearsing and everything. But whoever in Hollywood is writing these fake pop songs is doing a great
Yeah,
job this year. I'll say
and I
that.
wanna talk about the way that the production design and the concept of this being a story about someone who is famous, is a pop star. Quickly, I just want to mention my favorite elements of production design are in the apartments of a couple of characters that we get to visit. There's
Hmm.
really interesting furniture that they have, and lamps and lights hanging from walls that are weird in ways that you don't usually see. So
Hmm.
that's great. But I think it's again why I say this kind of in my mind replaces or builds upon entirely that first film is the idea of the thing that is scary about the movies, the Smile movies, is that there's people smiling at you. And what does that translate to? In the first movie, we talked about your criticism of it just being okay. It's trauma thing, put on a
Hmm.
smile over your pain, and yeah, that's fine. That's solid. But I think the
Yeah.
idea of tying it in thematically here to someone who is a performer and has to put on that performance face to mask to achieve their fame by masking their pain, I think is a
Uh
much
huh.
stronger thematic concept. And especially in the interactions that Sky has with the supporting cast, who I think are largely fine. We don't really spend enough time with them to like think that they're great
Yeah.
characters, but the pressure that she's put on or put under, and that combined with watching people smile at her and not having a smile on her face, and how does that interact socially? I think it's a really focused concept that they have here.
I think so too. I think they had just a really solid idea here. I mean, obviously, this is born out of things that I mentioned, like the absolute explosion and popularity of like the Eras tour, and it's sort of evergreen. I mean,
Mhm.
now the Eras tour is kind of on the outs, and now like Sabrina Carpenter's tour is on the in,
Yeah,
and it all just feels very very topical in that way. I mean, this movie came out the day after Liam Payne's tragic passing, which people have sort of wrapped up in drug use as
hmm
well, being pointed to in that
yeah.
scenario.
I also
So
think
yeah, I
of
mean,
like I'm not really a music person, so but I just kind of remember
mhm.
hearing about this Chapel Roan about to have a tour earlier this year and then canceling
Yes,
it to focus on her mental health. This movie
yeah,
also does
she
that.
yeah. Yeah, she had a couple appearances that she was canceling just because she was like this explosion of popularity and everything like that. Like it's well trodden ground that the average moviegoer or average pop culture enthusiast is going to be
Yeah,
familiar with. So the connections, the through lines are certainly there. And I think it just operates on a level of specificity that I enjoyed a little bit more than the first film.
sure,
Anyway, should we talk about the scares, the
sure.
horror
The
of
horror.
Smile
Yeah,
Do?
smile for it too.
Yes. Uh, I think that they are better in this film. I mean, I don't recall a whole lot of the big upscale the big moments of the first Smile film. I think obviously the one that I recall the most is the
Yeah,
swinging
yeah, yeah,
upside
yeah,
down head at the car window thing that they really hammered home on in trailers and everything like that. Or the someone coming cutting their face open with a piece of glass, which is just like kind of well trodden ground
yeah.
for this franchise now. But I think that we do some better stuff here.
Sure.
Honestly, I mean, there are some fake outs with toxic or obsessed fans that we do. The meet and greets are always a little bit awkward, whether that person be a smile demon or just a weird
Mhm.
fan. And there is, as you and I both agree, the scene of the movie, which is an imagined sort of in home invasion, if you want to say that, of a bunch of fans that appear in Sky Riley's closet, and
No,
this
those aren't
is in the
fans.
trailer.
Those aren't fans. Those are the choreographed dancers that are
I thought there were people. I saw there were people wearing the merchandise, so that's why I
yeah,
thought they were
but
like fans
but
or
the
whatever.
thing that I really take away from that scene, and again, it feels focused. Everything feels tied together. Is that these demons that are stalking her are doing like dance choreography to move
Hmm.
around and like move as she moves, and the timing is really like specific. And
Hmm.
that I just never seen anything like that before. And I think about that. I think the shot of the movie for me is all of the choreographer demons. I guess I'm calling them like
Yeah.
spider piled up on like spilling out onto the ceiling because they're all piled on top of
Yes.
one another
Yes.
and they're like striking poses.
They have the shot in
I'm
the
getting
trailer
goosebumps
of
describing that. I'm like,
yeah.
that's just such good imagery.
They have the shot in the trailer of the mirror hallway, but then yeah, they follow that up immediately with that like human tower, which is just really imposing. And then obviously there's the
They rush her and they start.
yeah, they rush her, or the free sort of like the freeze tag
Yeah, yeah,
moment in the apartment itself. And yeah, I mean that's just a really really good sequence. And there's a couple of the things I mentioned, like the fake out with the obsessed fan.
that's a good moment. Yeah.
There's the good moment at the beginning in like the drug dealer's
hmm
apartment where you really Sky Riley gets the demon passed on to
Yeah.
her. And
And
before I go any
great
deeper,
gore in that sequence.
yes,
Really
yeah,
good practical effects in this movie. I think that they work a lot better because they're tied to themes and a character that I care about more. And I also think that like if I were to do them side by side, I'm sure that the practical effects are more polished. The timing and the pacing of the sequences and sound design, I thought just all really worked well. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'd be curious to know for you, what are the major criticisms you have of this movie? Because as I think about like
Um,
each element, I'm like, no, yeah, they kind of just nailed it.
I think that it's obviously this movie is like 2 hours and 7 minutes long. If you take out credits, it's going to be around 2 hours. And well, I didn't necessarily feel it. One of the people that we saw it with mentioned that it was going maybe just a little bit long for him. I didn't feel that, but
No,
I
I
think
didn't either.
other people might. And I think it's necessary, as I was kind of saying. In that moment, and I wanted to get into spoilers on
Sure.
this for a second because, like you said, I don't really have any pointed major criticisms of this movie. I think it's really well written, really tightly wound, and everything like that.
They're
The
like a wind-up
scares,
toy.
the jump scares and everything like that are well doled out. It's not all just jump scares, music stings, and stuff like
Mhm.
that. There are those in this film, but they feel a little bit more
Sure.
reserved in when we do them. So, spoilers for Smile 2. I want to talk about the
Yeah.
ending. Um,
Is this something that would you
and the
say hinders the movie? Excuse me, hinders or strengthens the movie in your opinion?
From my experience watching Smile 2 for the first time, it definitely strengthened it for me. And I framed it like this. I said, maybe I'm stupid, okay, but I just didn't remember the first Smile movie that well. I forgot that it could like fully create scenarios, scenes in the mind of its victim
Yeah.
or whatever. Like make up things in whole cloth for them to experience and for the audience to experience. So when the third act twist happens and the thing of like we're trying to surgically stop your heart and trick the demon into thinking you're dead to get it out of you, when that all is revealed to be fake and a ruse of the demon, I was like, that's really good. It got me. They fully lulled me
Totally.
into believing all of that. The same thing with the friend and all of that. They fully lulled me in. And what really got me was as we were going down that line of going to that abandoned restaurant and everything like that in the third act of the movie, I was like, oh, I was really hoping that we would do the big concert and she kills herself at the end. Like that is the promise of this kind of film, the implicit promise. And I was disappointed that we weren't going to get that, and so I was very heartily heartened by. I was heartened by the fact that we did get to see a scene where she kills herself in front of a
Yeah.
bunch of people, which is weird to say, but like that's the promise of this kind of
Well,
horror
totally, and
movie.
I think that what's interesting about this film being a bigger budget sequel, universe continuation, of studio production is that I think what you were being lulled into is the studio promise of a safe and happy ending that this
Hmm.
movie people were hoping for it to not do, and of course it eventually does, and I think it's great that it does play you into that false sense of safety and security and like a happy ending that ultimately pulling that rug out from under you very quickly at the end. It's like a 5 minute
Hmm.
sequence, and then the movie just hard cuts as she kills herself in front of thousands and thousands of fans. That feels like a bold, creative choice that makes this something more and shows it like, look, it's
Yes.
I don't know how this is gonna end. I don't know if you can end this. It is ultimately horror movies, I think, can have nihilistic endings, and still come away you come away feeling like, well, that was just bold. Like it doesn't feel
Yeah.
like they're rejecting the happy ending necessarily. It's like that's just what happens in this
Yeah.
world.
And like, because they do a similar thing in the first
Yeah.
movie, and this is also what I said. I said coming out of the theater, I said, "Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me three times, I'm just going to go into Smile 3 thinking, okay, all of this could or could not be fake."
Yeah.
Like this time, they tricked me. They
Yeah.
got me into thinking that the events of the film were actually unfolding. But pulling that trick twice, I'm not sure how creatively I would approach doing a third
Yeah.
film. Because I think that the fans of your series, the fans of your movies now are going to be a little bit more tuned
Hmm.
into that kind of thing. So I mean that'll be an interesting challenge for Parker Finn,
Yeah.
but it got me this time. And I do want to mention the smile monster really got to me in the first movie. I was not expecting something of like that design to, sort of be pulled out as like the last thing up Parker Finn's sleeve, the creative team's sleeve in that first movie. And so I was expecting it to come out in some fashion in the second one, and they really, again, like they did with everything else in this movie, basically upped the ante on me in making it bigger, grander. It is stretching out across this entire stage that Sky Riley is on. It is, a more impressive effect, whether it be practical or enhanced with
Yeah.
digital CGI stuff. Yeah, I mean, it really upped the ante for me, even in that thing, which is what I really took away from the first
Yeah.
one, was being really shocked by like what the visualization of the monster at the end.
Totally. Yeah, I think it works very well here. I think it's also that scenario that makes it a lot more interesting because well the last the last movie ends with a really cool monster just kind of in like an abandoned house, I think. Like she's going there to kind of like isolate herself and so it's like okay. But putting it on the stage in front of all these people and all these lights and this movie has really interesting lighting and the way it plays with color and things and then you get this transformation from I think another good touch is having sort of the last act of this film be Sky Riley versus Sky Riley, the sort of
Yeah, I like that too.
pre crash drug addled version of her that has
Hmm.
the darker hair and the longer hair.
Looks completely different
And
too, which
looks
I
and
think
acts
really
completely
serves the
different.
film.
Again,
Yeah.
a compliment to Naomi Scott's performance. Her playing
Hmm.
off of herself in a couple of these sequences is really powerful stuff, and especially given that the Smile Monster doesn't have like usually doesn't have a physical form. It can feel kind of ephemeral, like oh
Yeah.
anyone can be it, and so what is it, and is someone just smiling? And that is obviously what creates attention, and I do like that. But I think tying it back to her and having it play as her, but the version of her that she's trying to escape from, I think is a great acting moment. I think it creates a lot more interesting thematic tension by the end. And it also just
Hmm.
gives Naomi Scott a great chance to act in a bunch of different ways. And I mean, the moment when she's in the freezer and the blood starts dripping on her and you see upside down the old
Yeah,
her
the car
hanging from
thing.
a thing
Yeah.
and she unbuckles the seatbelt and falls down. It's like, there's
Yep.
some really just crazy moments in this movie. And I think
Yeah.
that the playing with
It's
reality thing, just quickly to touch on that, I think it
yeah.
works here. I think lore brain Tucker, if I become
Uh
like a
huh.
big Smile fan and I want to like think about the lore of this, I think then it might become more frustrating. But as a
Hmm.
movie going visceral experience, I am in on this character and it is real to
Hmm.
her. And so I don't really care that it's not real. And also, I think it does some of the most interesting moments of filmmaking in terms of the editing and production design when because this is not real, because it's in her head, the world starts to meld together. Scenes start to meld together. A smash cut can happen. She can wake up from something. Someone can scare her, and we're just hard shift into something else. And
Hmm.
I specifically think about a couple moments uh, when she's got her friend over and she's sleeping next to her, and she's having this dream about the car accident, and the
Hmm.
friend eyes and mouth open and light comes out of her like a headlight
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
loud horn noise. I'm like, not only is that a
Uh huh.
great effect, it's super intimidating, super scary, and
Uh
it
huh.
can only happen because the reality is bending like this. And there's a moment when she thinks her leg is broken on stage, she's freaking out. Like
Yep.
they really play with it, I think, in really smart visual
They
ways.
do.
And
Yeah.
it's
It's
on
it's
Naomi Scott's
not
performance where
just.
you're like, well, she fucking believes this, so I'm scared as
Yeah.
shit.
Exactly. It's really like I mentioned before. The film does a great job of putting you in the POV of this character, and of course, yeah, the reality bending is meant for not just for like lulling you and sort of faking you out with whether a scene happened or not. It's more involved with like our character's mentality and her perception of the world around
Yep.
her. So, all good stuff, Tucker. I'm gonna give Smile 2 a 7.5 out of
Seven and
10.
a half, Tanner. I'll go higher. I'm not afraid to give a great movie, a great score. You gave a great score, so I'm just being a jackass. I'm gonna
Yeah,
give it an 8.8 out of 10. I really think that this is
nice.
one of the best horror movies of the year. I think
Yeah, for
basically I
sure.
have no major criticisms, and I think it's also one that's gonna age very well because it
I think
has
so
those
too.
topical slash evergreen themes and a great performance that I think people will remember very strongly.
Hmm.
And I'm also really just excited to see what Parker Finn does next because this
Me too.
really does feel like a maturation from that first film, kind of the way that Terrifier 2 did for me, where it's like, no,
Yeah,
this
I
is
think
the
so.
vision. And
Yes,
so
yes.
I think that I'd be good with this being the last one. I think two Smile movies. I think we're good. I think you're
Hmm.
right. I think it kind of might start to run itself a bit thin. But even if this film, scare wise, and also the concept of it being like a non reality and all that is largely similar to the first movie. It feels
Mhm.
like this needed to happen to fully realize that vision of why this is scary, to connect it to some better
Mhm.
themes, connect it to some better production design, cinematography, a stronger core performance, stronger core character. I just thought it was great. And so, great year for horror. This
Yep.
is might be my no, well, no, the substance is my favorite, but this is
Yeah.
definitely one of my favorites. Thank you everyone
Okay.
for watching our review of Smile 2. We'll see you guys next time.
I need to see how far away this person's house is, and so we should get
Which
started
person? What are you
soon.
fucking doing?
The person I go to for my
You go to
haircut.
someone's house?
Yeah.
How long have you been doing this? What the fuck are you talking about?
I mean, probably for about a year.
How did you meet this
On
person? Fucking
on
hair Facebook Marketplace? What's going on? Hair
her name is
Bay?
she her name is she goes to the chiropractor's office that works at, and so they do they give her a discount in exchange for giving and her family and myself haircuts for free.
Hmm. I wonder how that works out financially.
They're losing way more money than she
Yeah.
is. Yeah, for sure.
Hmm. I mean, it's kind of a cultural thing, right? What they're gaining is an ally, right?
Yeah.
If they were to go to war, they would be able to use years of cheap chiropractic as leverage to be
Yes.
like, we're we're gonna go fight Portugal, so you got to join us. You got to grab your arms because you're on our side.
Yeah. I like that you chose Portugal because that of course that means the family is getting
Yeah,
retribution for the
exactly.
colonization that
That's why I
happened
chose it.
hundreds of years
Yeah.
ago. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and so this random person that it goes to their fucking office would
Mhm.
have to take up arms,
They would.
and that's really the
That's
only
just
benefit is potentially if they go to war.
that's how World War One
Yeah,
happened.
it's like, well, you and I have been trading rice, and so,
That's right.
well, I mean, Germany that doesn't look great. So can you can you team up?
You gotta take
You're
care of
with
that.
me. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I guess. Well, we're one.
Okay, let's start. Let's start.